Hey everyone, welcome back to another BTLO Replay. But before we jump into PHISHY, be sure to follow us on Twitter or join the Discord server to keep in touch with the BTLO community. Links are in the description box below, and now I'll hand over to Josh to take you through the walkthrough.
In this video, we're going to cover the PHISHY V1, which is an easy security operations lab. So while the lab's getting set up, the first thing I like to do when I'm playing BTLO labs is I like to kind of just orient myself with what is going on, what is the scenario of the lab, and kind of any preliminary information that I can get my hands on just so that I know what I'm going into. So on the details tab, we have the scenario. Cool, let's take a look at this. You have been sent a phishing link. It is your task to investigate this website and find out everything you can about the site, the actor responsible, and perform threat intelligence work on the operator or operators of the phishing site. The website and kit you see in the lab is real. Execute caution when interacting with the malicious website and do not enter any sensitive information. Now, this is a little bit redundant because our labs don't have internet access intentionally. So we can actually mess around. We're not going to have any issues. The data that we enter in isn't going to be sent anywhere. So we don't need to worry about that, which is good. So, okay, so I kind of understand, right? We're looking at a phishing site. We need to just get information and answer the questions. So I can see here as well on the desktop, we've got this README text file. So I'm going to take a look at this as well. I'm going to make the font a bit bigger as well. That didn't do anything. Cool. So you've been sent a phishing link. The threat actor doesn't know who they're dealing with. From only the phishing URL, find out all you can about the person responsible to bring them to justice. And we've got the URL here. And then it's our job to explore the website and answer the questions. Okay, so we've got the URL. The next thing I like to do is to go and take a look at the questions. Just, again, to kind of work out what I'm being asked to do. And that's going to help me. You know, maybe I'm investigating one thing, but I see something else. This kind of lets me know that that other thing is going to be relevant, so I don't miss anything. So question 1, HTML page on the domain as a decoy. Where is it mirrored from and what tool was it used? Okay, interesting. What is the full URL of the background image on the landing page? Name of the PHP page, the processor's credentials, the SHA hash of the phishing kit zip file, the email address that's receiving entered credentials, something to do with PHP functions and variables, the domain of the website where users are sent to after entering credentials, and then something about an error with the phishing kit that's causing it to break. Okay. So first things first is I want to go and take a look at the phishing webpage. So I will open up Firefox. Let's make this full screen. Paste that in there. Going to minimize the questions tab. We don't need that for the moment. Okay. So we've got a Microsoft Office 365 phishing page. It's got an input form, right? So this is a credential harvester. It wants us to enter in a email address and the associated password. All of this is just a background image, which is interesting, right? Because this is one of the questions. So this is actually question 2. So what I might do for question 1, I'm not really sure how I'm going to approach that straight away. But the fact that this is asking for the background image and we're already on this page, I am actually going to start with question 2 instead. Now to get the background image, what I want to do is, the first place I'm going to look is going to be the page source. So this is just telling us what is actually being displayed on the page. Let's close this. Obviously it's a HTML page called index1. We've got some interesting things in here. So we've got the style CSS, which we expect, right? Because this page has styling on it. We've got the form here, form action, and it's post. So this means it's actually sending data that is entered into the form to this PHP file here, jeff.php. So we're definitely going to take a look at that. We have got some images here, right? So when we're looking for images, we're going to be looking for these image tags in the HTML, and we've got the source here, which is where the image is being retrieved from. We can see that because it's just a file name .extension, this means that these image files are actually hosted on the web server itself, which is good for us because it means we can take a look at them. And we've got, what, 1, 2, 3, Yeah, that's it. So I'm going to control and then left click each of these links so I can take a look at the images. And hopefully one of these is going to be the background. So we've got Office 365, which is the image from here. We've got user authentication, which is from here. It's very interesting that this is an image, right? We kind of expect this to be an actual toggle checkbox and this to be text. So the fact that that's an image is quite strange. And then we've got the copyright Microsoft, which is down here. So that, again, that's quite strange that that is actually an image rather than just text. I mean, maybe it's to try and kind of avoid detection of this website being flagged. For example, Microsoft Corporation on securedocument.net. Maybe this is some kind of just kind of measure by the threat actor, by the phishing kit, to try and avoid detection for longer so it can stay up. I don't really know why else they would do this. But then at the same time, these two, the Office 365 logo and the Microsoft copyright, this could potentially be because the phishing kit itself has different companies that it can imitate. So all of this here that we're seeing, right, could just be the template. And then because the actor has deployed the Microsoft Office 365 version of this kit, it's then populating these HTML pages with these specific images. So potentially this phishing kit can imitate other companies. So for argument's sake, if there was like a PayPal option, then it would change this to be a PayPal logo, and it would change this to say copyright 2019 PayPal. So that's quite interesting. But we haven't found the background image, so I'm going to close these. They're not relevant. I don't see anything in here. We've got some references to background, but I don't. This isn't the background image. This is to do with the actual submit button on the form. This one here, I think. Yep, there we go, because it says download. That's the text for it. So the background image isn't on here. Where would I look next? Interesting. So maybe in the style sheet, it might be in there, because obviously this is how this page is being styled, like the text and colors and things like that. So I'm going to control left click this to open it. Body, yeah, there we go. So we've got the background right here. We've got URL. So this is just how it's getting the image, no repeat, fixed size image. And because we have this, we can copy this and then just replace style.css, because we don't want to look at this file anymore. We want to look at this file instead. And perfect, there we go. There's the background image. So let's take a look at the question, see what it wants. The full URL, and we've got the format here is the entire URL. So we should be able to just copy this and paste it in. Oh, right, that's because I've still got the view source at the start, because remember, I'm looking at the source of this page because we came from here where we were already viewing the source. So I say to remove the view source, and then I have the actual URL. Cool. Okay, so that's question 2 done. Question 1, I'm going to leave that. I haven't really seen anything related to that just yet. There's nothing I can see in here. So I'm going to leave question 1. Let's take a look. What is the name of the PHP page which will process the stolen credentials? Now, we've already seen jeff.php here, which is associated with this input form. So I'm already 99% sure that this is going to be it. But we can test it in a better way. So I'm going to right-click this page. I'm going to do inspect, and then I'm going to go to the network tab of developer tools. And I'm going to enter something in here. So let's just do josh@test.co.uk, password of test. And because we're on the network tab, this is just going to record any network connections made by the browser. So when we submit this, we should see something happen. Okay, this is interesting. So we've got a GET request where the browser is trying to get www.office.com, which is the legitimate Microsoft website. And we can see that that is being done by jeff.php. So it's interesting that when we submit data to that form, it looks like jeff.php is actually processing that, and then it's trying to send us somewhere else, which I think is actually one of the other questions as well. Let's just go double check that. Here we go. So this is what is the domain of the website, which should appear once credentials are entered. So we can see that the browser is trying to send us to office.com. It's not loading, and that is most likely because we don't have internet in our labs, which is why it's obviously not resolving to office.com. So it wants us to enter the domain.tld. So if we just do office.com, perfect. So the PHP script is trying to take us to office.com. Now, what I imagine that is for is because the credential harvester is Microsoft Office 365 themed. If I was a user and I enter in my credentials and then I get sent to the legitimate office.com, I'm not going to be overly suspicious. I'll be a bit confused about why I've entered in my credentials and now I've kind of gone back to office.com. It would seem a bit strange, right? Because when you enter in credentials, you expect to log into something. But that's probably what the phishing kit is trying to do. Is it's just trying to take the user back to a legitimate site so that they don't really suspect what they've just done is malicious. It's just kind of trying to make that end-to-end journey of the user as not suspicious as possible. So that kind of explains why it's sending us to office.com. And now that we've got this browser error, we can see that it hasn't gone to office.com because we don't have internet. So it would have taken us to that legitimate site. So it was good to grab that question while we were looking for this one. And again, based on this, right, Jeff.php is initiating this request to take us to office.com, and the fact that we saw Jeff.php here as the form action. So when that form is submitted, what happens? And we know that it's posting data to Jeff.php. So just before we submit that, we're going to make 1000% sure we've got the right thing. Is I'm going to control and left click Jeff.php. And because we're in the view source view, is when we control and left click this to open it in a new tab, is we're still on view source. And there we go. We can see the actual contents of that PHP file here. So let's answer this question quickly before we dig into this. So the answer is Jeff.php. Okay, so let's just take a look at this before we look at the questions again, just so that we understand what this actually is. We can come back to it if we need to. What have we got here? So it's grabbing the IP address using the get environment function, I think that is. So it's taking my IP address when I submit that form. It's also getting the date. We can see here it's actually referencing the username and password which were entered into that form. So this is where that data is being posted to. And then based on this, with recipient and subject and headers, it's creating an email using the data that was entered into the form, and then it's sending it out to the attacker. I think there was actually a question here. What email address is set up to receive the phishing credential logs? So we can actually answer that here. So we've got the recipient variable, and that variable is holding the value boris.smets@tfluk.co. So this is where that email is going to be sent to. We can see here there is another phishing email here. There is another email address here. But this is just a header, and this is the from field in an email header. So this isn't actually where it's being sent. This means that when this address receives one of these phishing emails with the subject line result, is it's going to appear as if it's come from result, which has an email address phishing@phishing.com. Now this could be anything, right? They could set this to like bananas fruit at vegetables.com. This doesn't matter. This is just, kind of one of those descriptive fields. But this is probably how the attacker is actually identifying emails that are coming from this phishing kit using this from field here. So this is the email address that's going to receive emails from this phishing kit. So we're going to put this in. Perfect. Is there anything else while we're here? So we've got index1.html. So I don't think that's related because we're not on index1.html page, which is the phishing landing page. We've got an error in the phishing kit. We'll come back to that. That one might need some digging. Okay, we're going to leave this. We know that it's Jeff.php. I'm actually going to leave that tab open. I'm going to close this one. And for this, I'm going to close it as well because it's just trying to take us to office.com now. So let's go to this one here. What is the SHA-256 of the phishing kit in zip format? So sometimes if the actor hasn't cleaned up, is that we can find the actual zip file that contains this phishing kit in it. And obviously the phishing kit itself is just a collection of scripts and image files and HTML pages, which is what is actually giving us this this phishing page and all of the functionality along with it to allow people to enter in credentials, to email the credentials back to the attacker. So if we want to try and find the phishing kit, what I want to do is go back to the phishing page, and then we need to remember, right, this is the domain, and everything here is just kind of the file structure of where this resource is, right? So we're on the index1.html file on the web server. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start going up through these directories to see if there's anything we can get to. What I am going to do is I'm going to go to view page source because it's going to give me a bit more information when I'm actually looking at these. So if we get rid of this index1.html and we try to just look at the portal directory, press enter and we'll see what comes up. Okay, so on this we've got a script here. Window.location equals index1. So this looks like it's redirecting the user to index1.html, which is that phishing page. And it's also capturing the date and the time. Okay, this is quite interesting. I'm going to keep this open, but it's not what we're looking for because we're still hunting for that zip file. So I'll just duplicate this so we still have it. And then I'm going to go up to login. Okay, cool. So what we're seeing now is the actual index of these folders on the web server. So we don't need to view the source anymore. What we can do, I mean, we don't have to do this, but is if we remove view source and go to that URL, is we're actually going to see this kind of graphical interface for looking through the folders. Cool. Okay, so there's nothing in /login. We've got portal, which is that subfolder below us. So I'm going to keep jumping up so we can get upwards. So we're in login. I'm going to go up to protected, which is the parent directory. Okay, there's nothing in /protected, so I'm going to go up again to /login. Okay, nothing in here again, so I'm going to jump up to /secure, which is the first directory. Ah, cool, there we go. So we found the phishing kit.zip, or at least we think this is the phishing kit.zip. We can actually check. It's 40 kilobytes in size. So what I'm going to do is if I just left click this, it should just download it for us. Yeah, perfect. So I'm going to view it. It gets put in the downloads directory on our lab machine. And what I'm going to do is we'll answer the question first before we take a little bit of a deeper look at it. But if we right click, open in terminal, for some reason this hasn't opened in this actual location, which is /downloads, but it's fine because we can just do ls, see where we are. We're going to do cd downloads to change directories. And we're going to do ls to list, and then we're going to see that zip. So we want to get the SHA-256 hash, so we use SHA-256 some. It's a 0 rather than an O. So we're going to type 0, and we can just press tab to auto-complete that and press enter. So that's the SHA-256 hash. Let's see how the question wants it. Provide the last 6 characters. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Copy that. Cool, there we go, that's that question done. We've got a phishing zip now. If this was a live phishing site, this would be really, really useful for us because this phishing site could go down at any time. The web host could take it down. The domain registrar could take down the domain name. So it's really good that we've got this because it means we can go and do our offline analysis and we're not actually time limited because we have the files ourselves. Now, I don't think there's any questions about anything inside the zip. But what I will do is I'm just going to open this up just to have a look and just kind of see what it's like. So we can see we've got these folders, right, that we saw before: secure, login, protected, login/portal. If we go back to the folder, so we've got protected, we've got login, we've got portal, we've got the image files that we saw on the phishing page. We've actually got an index.html, because obviously the phishing page is on index 1. So that's quite interesting that we have this. I'm actually going to take a look at what this is. I'm going to open it with not the browser. I'm going to open it with a text editor, so mousepad. What's in here? Okay, so this is what we saw back when we were looking at, here we go, /portal. So this is actually index.html, and it's sending users to index1.html. So that's quite interesting. We've got the jeff.php, that's fine. We've already taken a look at that. And we've also got this, the background image, and we've got the style sheet as well. So there's nothing kind of unexpected in there. One thing we could do, again, is not really necessary, but let's just double check anyway, is if we open up a terminal in here, we're going to go back to downloads. We're going to cd into the unzipped Office folder. And then in here, we can just do ls-a, which is just going to show even hidden folders, because there could be something hidden in here. So there's nothing in protected, right? We've got the parent directory, and we've just got the protected directory. So let's go into protected, ls-a, nothing. We've only got the login directory. We're just going to repeat this, cd login, nothing in here, cd portal. And these are just the files that we saw actually in the file browser. So there's nothing hidden in here that we haven't seen already. So we don't need the phishing kit open anymore. What I am interested in, though, that's come to my mind is the question here, right? What is the function called to produce the PHP variable which appears in the index1 URL? So we've got this open. Here's the index1.html, and we have this value here, which I'm not really sure what it is, right? It's so a function is producing this value. It might actually be something to do with this, right? We've got JavaScript index1.html plus new. I think the plus new is adding something to this URL, which would make sense why we're seeing this number at the end. Yeah, because we've got the question mark here, and then it goes on to that number there. So it's potentially the date and get time. So this here is the actual function, which is producing a value, and that value is probably going to be this. It's not what I would expect to see in terms of time, right? I would expect there to be the day, the year, the hour, the minute. But what this could actually be is epoch time. So what we can do, and what I like to do, is have a Google tab open. If there's ever anything I'm not sure about, I can just go ahead and Google it. So I am going to search for epoch, I don't know, time converter. Cool, epoch converter. So we can see straight away, right, this default value that's been added in here looks extremely similar to what we have here. You know, the 1614, 1691. So we should be able to just paste that value in here and translate. Okay, so this is the actual time that we're seeing in a human readable format. So this is Sunday, February 28th, 2021, which is quite interesting, right? Because the date on our lab machine is going to be today, which is the 2nd of August, 2023 at 21:31. So this is out. But what I think this could be is when we were looking at the index listing here, so if we go back to the protected folder and take away view source, and we saw this index page. Yeah, cool. We can see the last modified date here is the 18th of February 2021, which I think is what we had here. Yeah, 28th of February. Okay, so it's a lot closer. So that's quite interesting that we're kind of matching up the dates here. But what I do want to try is if I try and go to the portal directory, what it should do is redirect me to index1.html and add on that current date time. So let's give it a go and see how this works. So we're hitting portal. That JavaScript is going to run and redirect us. So yeah, cool. We got pushed back to index1.html. Now this number, I'm pretty sure this has changed. So if I copy this back into the converter, there we go. So we've got August 2nd, 2023, 9:32 p.m. And we take a look up here, 9:32 p.m. Okay, so that is actually generating the date and time that JavaScript is run, which we just did. And it is doing it in epoch time, which means we should have the answer to that question now. Let's see what it wants. It wants the function name. And that function name is going to be, have we got it open still, or did I close it? I close it. So I'm going to view the source and just jump back into the portal directory. There we go. So this is going to be the actual function, right? Because this is index1.html, and then it's adding the value to that URL of whatever this function generates. So if we're going to copy this, paste it as the function name, and there we go. So that's that question done. And we've only got two left now. We've got the first one, which I've been avoiding since the start, and we've got this final one, which I think is probably going to be something we want to look at the end, to be honest. So the HTML page on securedocument.net is a decoy. Where was this web page mirrored from, and what tool was used? So I've got kind of some experience using website cloners. I think that's what they're called. Primarily for things like this, right? Like phishing cases where I get a phishing email and there's a phishing site and I want to capture it, whether it's just for research or for training purposes. And I've used a tool called HT-Track. Let's just go and see if that is, or if I just completely made it up. Yeah, cool. HT-Track website copier. And I'm pretty sure this one's actually quite widely used. So it could be this. And I know that whenever you use this, it adds a comment to the HTML, similar to how we have it here. So something like this, right? This is just a HTML comment. So we should be able to see this somewhere. I remember we've kind of gone up this entire structure and we haven't seen anything. So I'm not entirely sure where we could find that. Let's just reread the question again. HTML page on securedocument.net. That's one thing we haven't actually looked at is the actual root domain, right? So securedocument.net. We haven't actually gone that far up. We stopped at /secure. So let's go take a look at securedocument.net itself. Okay, so we've got this cpanel error page, which just says the site can't be accessed. Okay, it's interesting. Let's take a look at the page source. Yeah, exactly as I thought. We've got the actual comment here from HT-Track that this has been copied. So I'm a bit confused at why this page has been copied. But what I think it could be is that having this error page on the root domain, if somebody comes along and somehow looks at securedocument.net, they're going to see this error page and they're going to think, okay, the website's down, I'm going to move on. So it actually could be as simple as that, is that they've copied this cpanel error page, which is a hosting company, to kind of try and trick people to think that a website isn't up, so that they don't start looking around and potentially find, all of these folders where the phishing kit is. So I think that's what it is. If we look at the page source again, we can see that it was mirrored from this IP address, CGI default webpage.cgi. That's quite interesting. So it looks like they've copied this page to try and pose as an error page to not draw attention to the site. So if we look at the question again, what does it need from us? Where's the web page mirrored from, and what is the tool name? Cool. So we've got both of those. We know it was mirrored from here. So it wants us to include the .cgi page. And then it wants the tool name. Use the first part of the tool name only. So I'm going to assume that's httrack. httrack. Perfect. So we've answered all of the questions apart from one, which is about an error in the phishing kit. What is causing the phishing site to break? So I remember earlier when we entered in our credentials, I'm just going to close all these tabs so we just have the one, is when we entered in stuff here, it didn't take us to office.com straight away. And we know that's partly because the lab doesn't have internet access. But if you remember before that, it was actually printing some of the text to the screen, which is really not ideal for the threat actor because they don't want the user to get suspicious about what they've just done. Because if the user goes, "Whoa, this does not look legitimate," they could go and change their credentials so that they're now worthless to the actor. Or they could inform their security team, who could then do the same thing. They could reset their credentials. So we're going to fill this out again. We're going to go to that first page. We're going to see what happens. Right, so we can see that we're getting taken to jeff.php, and we can actually see some of the code from that PHP file. So because we know that this is going to try and take us to office.com, and it will eventually error out, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to open it up in a new mousepad. So applications, accessories, mousepad. I'm going to paste this in. And then what I want to do is I want to compare this to the actual jeff.php. So if I view the page source, I can close that tab, don't need it. If we put these side by side, this might be a bit small to see, but can we zoom in? No, we can't. So what I can see here, right, is this post email ad, which is here in the actual PHP file. And it's starting a little bit before that. So headers, and then it's going back up to here. So we can even see the difference in the actual font here. Like this is bold, and then it goes back to normal weighted font. So that's interesting. Obviously, that page shouldn't be posting this because the actor doesn't want the user to see this, because if you enter in your credentials and you just see this on a page, you're probably going to freak out. So this is interesting. What does the question actually want us to do? There is an error in this phishing kit. What variable name, so variable, it's going to be one of these, right? The $ name, which is used to hold a value. What variable name is wrong, causing the phishing site to break? Okay, this is quite interesting. So we can see here, we've actually got this red underline, which I think is trying to tell us that there's an error. Yeah, it is. So saw, I don't know what this actual character is called, right? This one. I've always called it a crocodile, and I know it's not going to be called that, but we're going to call it that for now. So it saw crocodile ? Probable cause, attempt to use an XML processing instruction in HTML. XML processing instructions are not supported in HTML. So that could be relevant to this, maybe, because that would explain why it's kind of breaking here, which is where it starts to print it to the web page. But the thing is that it's seeing the crocodile ? Which is up here. Now I'm pretty sure that's how you initialize a PHP script. So that actually makes sense that it's here, because we know that this PHP script is running, because we know that when we enter credentials into that form on the phishing page, it is eventually executing this and taking us to office.com, which means all of this should be executing, but the fact that this error is telling us about this, I don't think that's actually an error. But what I do want to do is I want to just go and check how to start a PHP file. Maybe not PHP file, maybe PHP script. Kind of makes more sense. How to create a PHP script. Oh yeah, look, there we go. We can see that this is expected. I'll just double check. Yeah, and then it ends with question mark crocodile, so that makes complete sense. So I don't actually think this error is related to what we're trying to work out. What is actually breaking the phishing kit? Just looking at the wording specifically, right? It says what variable name is wrong. What variable name is wrong? So obviously all of these are variable names. So for this example, right, the variable result is holding the value of a string office. So I think it might just be easiest if we just go down these one by one and try and work out which one could be wrong. I don't know if this means it's spelt incorrectly or maybe it's being used incorrectly. But if we just go through them, we can probably work it out. So the variable result holds the value office. I don't actually see it being used anywhere else, right? So it's a bit confusing why they would set result to hold the string office if they're not actually using it anywhere else. Now we can see other references to result here, so result, but these are just strings, right? And these double quotation marks, they're just strings. They're not actually, like this result here isn't going to change to office. If we want to actually call a variable inside, what we would do is we'd use this, right? So for example here, we have IP : space. That is a string because it's inside those quotation marks. And then we have this, the dot variable IP dot. That, that is how we would get that value in here if we wanted it. So I don't see result being used anywhere. So it seems a bit redundant. I don't know why they're bothering with line 3 because it's not used anywhere else. So that's a bit strange. We've got this before. We've got the IP, which is going to hold the variable remote address, which is retrieved using the get env function. So this is just going to hold an IP address of the person visiting the phishing page that is submitting that form. We've got this one here, which it really doesn't look like it should be this. It doesn't really say anything. Data massy, which is just going to hold the value of the date function. I'm not really sure. I mean, maybe this is a specific way to. Well, I'm not sure what this is. So this is a bit strange. I'm quite interested in that. We've got message. Nothing in here seems strange, right? We've just got strings, and then we've got new line. So it will just put these on their own lines. We've got here. This is where it's actually getting the username and password, which was entered into the input form on the phishing page. So we've got user 1 and pass 1. So these are actually, these are actually variables themselves. They're not strings, right? They're not in quotation marks. They're in these single ones. So these are variables, but nothing kind of looks wrong there to me. We've got the message that's calling that IP variable, the value of it. Cool. We've got the attacker's email address. We've got more strings. We've got the email headers here. So this I'm not sure about, right? So this is again, I think a function because it's in the single quotation marks. I'm not really sure about this. I haven't really seen this anywhere else. We've got the MIME version for the email. Yeah, okay, so nothing really stands out immediately as it is wrong, right? And we need to remember that we're focused on what variable name is wrong, which is a little bit confusing because, I don't really see any of these being wrong. I don't see any of them, being spelt incorrectly. So, for example, like if this IP was IPP, and then it was trying to call IP. Obviously, this isn't going to exist, so that could be an error, but we don't see that in this PHP file. There's not really anything that stands out. There's a few things that I don't understand, but that doesn't necessarily mean that is the issue with the phishing kit. The only thing I can really think of is maybe not these variables where we're actually giving them the values here. Is it could be something to do with the username and password, maybe. So we've got the variable user1, which is going to hold that value when the victim enters in their email address. And then we've got the password, which is obviously the password field from the form as well. So what I want to do is, I don't really care about this anymore, so I'm going to close that. What I do care about is the phishing page itself, right? So I'm going to duplicate this, duplicate tab. I'm going to go back to that index1.html phishing landing page because I want to take a look at the form. So we've got it here, right? Form. This is the input, type email, name user, placeholder email ID required. And then the password, email ID, email password. Okay. So this is the type. This is email type. This is the type as a password type. Name. Now the name, I think this is going to be the name of the variable, which is going to hold the data. So why is the email ID variable called user and pass with all these extra characters? Because back in the PHP script, it's trying to get the value for user1 and pass1, but user1 and pass1 aren't actually being used in the phishing form. They're using user and pass. So from what I understand is that it's trying to retrieve these values, but these variables don't exist, so there is no value for it to retrieve. So that could be what's breaking the script, because it's being told to add this as part of the email body message, but these values don't exist, so there's nothing for it to send. And I think that could be what is causing the error. I mean, that makes sense to me, right? It's looking for user1, but the form is using user. So, I mean, we could do more testing, right? Obviously, we can't. Well, I mean, because we have the phishing kit, what we could do, I mean, we're not going to do it. It's a little bit extra, but because we have the phishing kit, is we could host that phishing kit ourselves, in like a virtual machine or a lab environment, and we can go and modify that PHP, that Jeff.php script, and we could change the values to be user and pass. And then we could actually enter, fake test credentials into that phishing form. And if this is the error, which I'm 99% sure it is, we could actually, we could have like a packet capture. We could record the traffic using like Wireshark, and we should be able to see that email being sent out. So I'm pretty sure that is it. And if I look at the question as well, it does mention enter any 4 potential answers. And that makes me incredibly sure that we found the right thing, because 4 potential answers, right? We've got user, pass, and then user1, pass1. So it makes sense, right? There's 4 potential answers because all 4 of these are kind of wrong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter user1, and this should be right, okay? Because remember, the form is using 2 variable names, but the actual script that's processing those credentials is using 2 different names, so the value isn't going to exist for the script to actually process. Awesome, and there we go. We've got the confetti. We've finished the lab. We've answered all the questions. It's only taken us about 43 minutes, which I think for an easy lab is not too bad. And this is kind of one of the more lengthy, easy labs. Now, there is actually a PHISHY V2 lab, which is a hard security operations. So it's going to be much more difficult than this. I haven't actually had to play with it yet, but what I do expect is that a lot of phishing kits actually have inbuilt defenses to stop you doing what we've done, right? To stop you looking at the files, to stop you finding the phishing kit. And because it's a hard lab, that's what I'm going to expect to see, is that the phishing kit itself will have all these different controls to stop me getting access to it to kind of do that kind of deep analysis. So I'm looking forward to doing PHISHY v2. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. We've gone through, we've answered all the questions, we've triaged a phishing kit, we've pulled out really cool information about where these emails are being sent to, how all the data is being processed, where the images are stored. And we actually got our hands on the phishing kit zip file itself, which is really, really cool for research purposes. So I will see you guys in the next video.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe to never miss a video. In the meantime, remember to join us on Discord and tune in every Friday at 6 PM BST for BTLO Replay. Thanks everyone, and see you all next time.